Although modern gaming has tried its damnedest to stamp out cheaters, it's been an undeniable part of the medium's DNA since its inception, with players keenly finding ways to circumvent traditional gameplay with or without the developers' help. But sometimes the devs get pretty creative in the ways in which they absolutely trounce cheaters. So let's take a look at them. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 creative ways that video games fought cheaters. Number 10. Creating honeypot data which only cheaters could read. Dota 2. Now, earlier this year, Valve announced that they brought the ban hammer down on 40,000 Dota 2 players who have been caught using third-party software to cheat in the hugely popular MOBA game, and Valve's method for catching them was quite genius indeed. They updated the game with a digital honeypot, a segment of data hidden inside the game's code which could never be read by a regular honest player not using cheats, but would be read by a player using software to assist them. This gave Valve absolute certainty that all 40,000 banned players were unambiguously guilty of cheating, while further asserting that they made their efforts known to effectively act as a deterrent and assure offending players that they will be caught eventually. While more ambitious Dota 2 cheaters will likely be looking into ways to circumvent this clever anti-cheating mod, it was certainly effective in ridding the game of a large swathe of ill-intentioned ne'er-do-wells. Number 9. Corrupting all of your save files. Valkyrie Profile 2 Silmeria. Now, Dota 2's anti-cheat crusade feels incredibly generous compared to the utterly savage manner in which Valkyrie Profile 2 ruins some cheaters' days, and does so in a game without any online functionality no less. The game shipped with an anti-cheat software called GameGuard, which can defect when players are using cheats, and follows up by corrupting your save file. If that's bad enough, the corruption doesn't show up until late in the game, luring players into a false sense of security before having it continually crash. Oh, and by the way, it gets worse than that. If you're using multiple save files in an attempt to outwit GameGuard, well, you're also screwed, as the corruption will affect all save files on your memory card as it's tied to the overall game system file. As such, to play a clean run of the game, you'd need to delete every Valkyrie Profile 2 save, including system files, from your memory card. On one hand, that is one hell of an aggressive and creative way to fight cheaters, but on the other, talk about overkill. Number 8. The Receptionist Shames You over the PA system. Theme Hospital. On the decidedly less punitive end of the spectrum, we have the utterly delightful Theme Hospital, which rather than threaten the integrity of your save file, rather gently shames you for using cheats. Now, to be clear, Bullfrog's legendary hospital sim has a built-in cheat functionality, allowing you to enrich yourself, gain equipment, skip forward in time, and even cause an emergency. So the team clearly wasn't seriously bothered about you using some cheats. Yet, as a cheeky admonishment for cheaters, they'd be called out by the hospital's receptionist, who would loudly and enthusiastically announce over the building's PA system, "The hospital administrator is cheating." Granted, within the context of the game world itself, you have to wonder what the hell that would even mean to anyone who hears the announcement. All the same, it's a small price to pay for being able to increase your bank balance by $10,000 with a single button press. Number 7. Elements disappear when the game is paused. Mario Party. Sometimes the most elegantly simple solutions are the most brilliantly effective, and in the case of the Mario Party franchise, Nintendo realized that players could cheese some of the memory-based minigames by simply hitting the pause button and waiting until they had memorized everything on screen. And so, in many of the series' games, the respective visual elements will actually disappear from the screen while the game is paused, and only reappear when it's unpaused, in turn preventing players from abusing the pause feature to net themselves an easy win. In fact, Mario Party isn't the only Nintendo franchise to do this. Pausing the WarioWare games during minigames will cause the screen to be plunged into total darkness, ensuring that you can't take advantage of the pause screen. On the surface, this might seem like an incredibly straightforward remedy to a most basic level of cheating, and yet, how many other games have actually bothered to implement it? Number 6. Valve gifted a golden halo to anyone who didn't cheat. Team Fortress 2. If gamers en masse have proven anything over the years, it's that they're incredibly susceptible to FOMO, and so when all else fails, developers can exploit that to punish cheaters. Though perhaps not egregious as cheating goes, Team Fortress 2 did nevertheless have a problem with players using idling programs to exploit the game's item drop system, where weapons or cosmetic items would be regularly given to players whilst playing online. Idling programs such as Steam Stats were able to mimic the game's engine and allow players to receive item drops while not actually playing the game, and and these programs proved hugely popular and were ultimately used by a large chunk of the player base. In September 2009, however, Valve decided enough was enough and released an update which gave a special item to anyone who hadn't used idling programs, a golden halo hilariously called the Cheater's Lament. The halo also came complete with the message, "Congratulations, your honesty has been rewarded with a new hat." Naturally, hackers were a bit miffed that they had to miss out on this shiny treat, and in the years that followed, Valve made several changes to the item drop system which made idling decidedly less effective, such as forcing players to confirm a new item before being able to receive another one. Number 5. Forcing you to fight many versions of the final boss, Crusader No Regret. Classic isometric action game Crusader No Remorse allowed players to enter the code Jessica16 in order to activate cheat mode. The players expecting to simply repeat the cheat on sequel Crusader No Regret were in for a nasty surprise. Enter Jessica16 this time around and you'll be greeted with the message, "Of course we changed the cheats, duh." But because that wasn't enough of an admonishment, the final boss, Chairman Dragon, will suddenly pipe up saying, "I've been waiting a long time for this," before you're transported into a giant room where 8 versions of a mech suit wearing Dragon start relentlessly firing rockets at you. Oh, and you've got no cover at all to speak of, and the battle is scored by a bunch of Christmas-themed songs, because this Easter egg could also be accessed by non-cheating players on Christmas Day. Defeating the 8 bosses is incredibly challenging, but not impossible. But to further thumb its nose at players who try to recycle the previous game's cheats, even if you do triumph, you'll suddenly combust into a pile of gore at the conclusion of the fight. The sequel did, however, have its own bespoke cheat code, Loose Cannon 16. Evidently, the devs just wanted to poke a little fun at lazy players who figured that they'd just use the exact same codes again. Number 4. Lottery cheaters got locked out until they paid a fine. Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. In Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, players can take part in the Happy Lucky Lottery, a lottery hosted by a bulky bob-omb called Lucky. Tickets can be purchased for 100 coins, and if the RNG gods are smiling down on you, you might end up winning. But because dumb luck isn't enough for some players, the lotto can be cheated by moving the GameCube's clock forward to midnight, allowing players to see the winning number and then move their clock back to normal time. Yet doing so will result in that day's lotto being suspended, at which point Lucky informs you that foul play is afoot and that the lottery's clock has been tampered with. Lucky will then straight up ask you if you are the culprit, and if you confess, he'll have a full-on breakdown before insisting that you purchase a new ticket at the princely cost of 500 coins, effectively fining you for your dishonest behavior. Number 3. Your opponents are notified if game data is modified. Spacewood Ho. Classic sci-fi strategy game Spacewood Ho came up with an elegantly simple but quite delicious solution to deal with players who tried to do the most dishonorable of things, and that is cheat during multiplayer matches. The scoundrels. Simply put, the game would just drop all the pleasantries and grass you up to the opposing players. According to the game's chief designer Joe Williams, the dev team worked hard to ensure that if they couldn't stop players cheating in multiplayer games outright, at least they could ensure that other players knew exactly what they were up against. And so, if the game detects any sudden changes in a player's stats or game data, the other players will be informed that they are playing against a damn dirty cheater. Williams amusingly went on to point out that if you're cheating against the CPU though, there's no such penalty, for obvious reasons. Number 2. A player hacked the leaderboards and begged Nintendo to implement anti-cheat. Splatoon 2. When developers won't deal with cheaters, players might actually feel compelled to take matters into their own hands, and that's precisely what happened with Splatoon 2. In 2018, one player became exasperated enough with the game's online multiplayer being so infested with cheaters that they decided to send Nintendo a message, and they did this by cheating themselves, and they cheated big. The player took it upon themselves to hack their game's online leaderboards, editing their X-Power numbers so that they appeared in the top 4 spots of the leaderboard with the player names "Please add anti-cheat." Get it? The person responsible even took to Reddit to elaborate that they're a huge fan of the game, but were dissatisfied with Nintendo's refusal to implement sufficient anti-cheat measures. Nintendo predictably responded by banning the individual from Splatoon 2's online play, though their clever gambit actually ended up working, as about a month later, the company also began implementing more robust anti-cheat measures. This also carried through to the recent release of Splatoon 3, where Nintendo took a far more proactive approach in banning cheating players. And number 1, the old money cheat gets you a high-interest loan instead. SimCity 2000. 1989, SimCity memorably allowed players to receive an instant loan of $10,000 by holding shift and typing fund, albeit with the caveat that getting greedy and entering the cheat 3 times in a single game year would trigger an earthquake. For the sequel, SimCity 2000, Maxis decided to have a little fun with players simply expecting to use the money cheat again, because this time typing fund would give players a bond with an excruciating 25% interest rate. Yikes. It was a clever subversion of player expectations expectations for sure, albeit one which unintentionally, hilariously backfired for Maxis, given that players soon discovered a way around to exploit this for their own material gain. Basically, if you take out two 25% cheap bonds in a row and then issue a real bond with a 0% interest rate, your total interest rate will be negative, meaning that the bank basically ends up paying you a $1.5 million stipend every game year. Amazing. And there we go, my friends. Those were 10 creative ways that video games fought cheaters. I hope that you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below. And if you want to chat to me further, you can do so over on the social medias, both X and Instagram, where it's at RetroJ, but the O is a 0, or you can swing by FGS or the Future Game Show, where I'm doing all of my gaming content going forward. Hope to see you over there. Also, hope that you're having a great day, my friend, and treating yourself with love and respect, because you deserve the bloody best, alright? So don't be hard on yourself. Don't cheat yourself out of that positivity that you bloody well deserve, you massive ledge. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.